Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
I want you to think for a moment about the last thing you ate. Did you truly enjoy it? And then maybe the harder questions. Did you know what it really did to your body, your energy, or even, like, your mood?
Yeah.
Did it set you up for that slump an hour later? Or maybe leave you craving more food in just 2 hours?
It's a really common experience, isn't it?
It is. For so many of us, our own bodies feel like a black box. We know they work, but we're often flying blind when it comes to understanding how our food choices actually impact us day to day.
Absolutely. We tend to choose meals based on habit, maybe what's popular, without a clear picture of that biochemical ripple effect happening inside.
Right.
If our bodies could just talk, they'd be telling us exactly why we feel sluggish, or why we're constantly hungry, or even why our skin might be acting up.
That's precisely the mystery we want to unpack today. In this deep dive, we're going to explore the huge impact of just one powerful molecule. Glucose.
Yeah.
Blood sugar. We're drawing insights from Jessie Inchauspe's really fascinating book, Glucose Revolution, the life-changing power of balancing your blood sugar.
Great book.
Yeah. Our mission today is to cut through some of the noise and reveal how understanding glucose can unlock, well, really remarkable improvements in your physical and mental well-being. A shortcut, maybe, to being truly well-informed.
And Jessie Inchauspe is uniquely suited to guide us here. She's a scientist, importantly not a doctor, and the mind behind that huge Instagram account at Glucose Goddess.
Right, I've seen that.
Yeah, and her personal journey into this field is pretty compelling. It actually started with a really severe spinal accident when she was 19.
Wow.
Yeah, it left her with a challenging condition called depersonalization derealization disorder. And this experience has sort of propelled her on this quest to understand her body much more deeply.
That sounds incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
But clearly it sparked something, a powerful curiosity. What led her from that to these insights about glucose?
Well, she ended up working with continuous glucose monitors, CGMs. You've probably heard of them.
At 23andMe. And this work let her see, like in real time, how lifestyle choices, especially our food habits, often have more sway over our health than our genetics.
Interesting.
Yeah. She realized we're not just passengers, We're kind of the pilots of our own bodies. And her scientific work, her self-experiments, they've all translated into these really surprising practical tips anyone can use.
So we're talking about more than just what we eat then. It goes deeper.
Exactly. What the science, especially in the last, say, 5 years, has shown is that while what we eat definitely matters, how we eat it, the order, the combination, the grouping matters even more.
Really? How?
Well, the amount of glucose in our blood, that's the one metric that really impacts almost every system in our body. And learning how to flatten our glucose curves, that's the key. That unlocks better health. It can even reverse many common issues.
Okay, you mentioned common issues. I read the statistic, something about 88%.
Yeah, it's shocking, isn't it? A recent study found that 88% of Americans probably have dysregulated glucose levels and don't even know it.
88%. I know. So chances are this deep dive is incredibly relevant to you listening, whether you have diabetes or not.
Okay, let's break this down then. Start right at the beginning. What exactly is glucose, fundamentally?
Right. Glucose, it's at the heart of the most vital biological process on Earth, photosynthesis.
Okay, plants.
Exactly. It all starts with plants. For millions of years, they've mastered combining carbon dioxide, water, and sun energy to create this substance we call glucose.
Basic fuel.
The basic fuel, yeah. The cornerstone of almost all life. Plants then store it in different ways, like long chains called starch. Think potatoes, rice, corn, beans, lentils, roots and seeds.
And fiber. That's related too, right?
Yes. Fiber is another glucose chain, but
Yeah.
structured differently, so humans can't break it down for energy. It's the plant's structure: trunks, leaves, flowers, celery, lettuce, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And plants can also tweak glucose a bit to make fructose, which is, interestingly, about 2.3 times sweeter.
Oh, okay. So that's the plant side. How do we humans get this fuel primarily?
Well, our cells prioritize glucose for energy. Your body is constantly burning it, something like 8 billion molecules every second.
Wow. That's hard to imagine.
It is. It's like burning every grain of sand on Earth's beaches every 10 minutes. There's incredible amounts.
So mostly through eating it.
Mostly by eating it, yes.
Yeah.
But our bodies are clever. They can also make glucose from fat or protein if needed. That happens in the liver. It's called gluconeogenesis.
Right.
And that ability to switch fuel sources from glucose to fat, That's metabolic flexibility. That's what diets like Atkins or keto try to tap into.
Okay, so glucose is clearly essential, vital even. But why all the negativity around it now? What goes wrong? What causes these glucose spikes we keep hearing about?
That's the crucial question. It really comes down to how modern food processing clashes with our ancient biology.
How so?
Well, processed foods often strip out the fiber and massively concentrate the starches and sugars. And our brains, from an evolutionary perspective, are wired to seek out sweetness. Back in the Stone Age, sweet meant safe, high-energy food.
Ah, the survival instinct.
Exactly. So when we taste something sweet, our brain releases dopamine. It's that same chemical reward hit you get from like sex or video game or social media likes.
So we're actually hardwired to crave sugar. It's not just weakness.
Not at all. A 2016 study showed mice would just keep pressing a lever for a dopamine hit, even ignoring food and water.
Wow.
Yeah. And look at us. Our sugar consumption has just skyrocketed, over 94 pounds per person per year now. It's driven by that deep desire for the dopamine hit.
94 pounds. That's staggering.
Yeah.
So what are the immediate effects of these rapid glucose floods, these spikes? What does that actually feel like?
Okay, so when glucose hits your system fast, say, increasing by more than 30 milligrams per deciliter within an hour and then crashes just as quickly, these spikes cause immediate problems.
Like what?
You'll probably feel constantly hungry, have cravings. That's because your hunger hormones, leptin and ghrelin, get totally mixed up and insulin stays high.
Ah, the afternoon slump.
Exactly. That fatigue, the brain fog. It can also worsen menopause symptoms, hot flashes, night sweats. Migraines, too, they're strongly linked to insulin resistance.
Okay.
Spikes can mess with your sleep and even temporarily weaken your immune system. That became really relevant with things like coronavirus complications.
So the immediate effects are pretty disruptive. But what about long term? If these spikes are happening constantly, day after day, what kind of damage are we looking at then?
Yeah, over time, the consequences get much more serious. We're talking damage at the cellular level.
Okay.
First, there's mitochondrial damage and oxidative stress. Your cell's powerhouses, the mitochondria, just get overwhelmed by this constant glucose flood.
Overwhelmed.
Yeah, they start releasing these harmful little molecules called free radicals. They damage your DNA, your cell membranes. This whole state is called oxidative stress.
And that's bad.
It's a major driver of aging. And things like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, cognitive decline. And here's a key thing. Fructose actually increases oxidative stress even more than glucose does.
Wow, okay. So cellular damage. What else?
Second, there's something called glycation. The author calls it browning, like toasting bread.
Browning.
Yeah, glucose molecules literally stick to other molecules in your body, damaging them permanently. Like you can't untoast toast, right?
Right.
This damage is irreversible. This browning speeds up aging, think wrinkles, but also cataracts, heart disease, even Alzheimer's. Some scientists are calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes now because of this link.
Type 3 diabetes.
Yeah.
And this combination, free radicals and glycation, sounds like it would cause inflammation everywhere.
It absolutely does. It leads to this generalized chronic inflammation throughout the body. Now, some inflammation is good, it's protective, but when it's chronic, it turns on us, damaging tissues and organs.
And that leads...
That's now understood to be the root cause of most chronic illnesses. Stroke, heart problems, liver disease, obesity, diabetes. The World Health Organization calls these inflammation-based diseases the greatest threat to human health.
It really sounds like our bodies are just struggling to cope with an overload they weren't designed for. Which brings us to insulin, right?
Yes.
That plays a huge role here.
A massive role.
Yeah.
You see, our liver and muscles, they have limited space to store glucose. It's stored as glycogen.
Okay.
Once those storage tanks are full, any extra glucose gets converted straight to fat. And here's a crucial point about fructose, remember, the sweeter one.
Yeah.
Unlike glucose, fructose only turns into fat. It builds up in the liver, causing non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and adds to our other fat reserves. So weight gain.
And the insulin part.
Those repeated glucose spikes cause chronically high insulin levels. And that is the root cause of obesity, type 2 diabetes, and PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome.
So flattening the glucose curve.
Directly flattens your insulin curve, which is incredibly beneficial for health, for weight management, everything.
Okay, so we've established that maybe 88% of us are on this glucose roller coaster without knowing it. Besides the things you've mentioned, like fatigue and cravings, what are the key signs listeners should look out for? How do you know if your glucose might be dysregulated?
Right. It's worth asking yourself some questions. Do you struggle with your weight? Find it really hard to lose even when you try?
Mm-hmm.
Do you get extreme hunger pangs, like really hangry between meals?
Yeah, definitely know that feeling.
Are you tired a lot? Feel like you need caffeine just to function? What about brain fog, anxiety, depression,
Okay.
skin issues too, acne, eczema? And for women, irregular periods or other hormonal imbalances are strong signals.
These are all messages then.
Exactly. Powerful messages from your body saying, hey, something's off with my glucose. And the really good news, the empowering part, is that for many people, these issues are very much reversible. You can take steps.
That is empowering. It shifts the whole perspective from just living with it to actually taking back control. Okay, now for the exciting part, the glucose hacks. Before we jump into the specifics, what's the general idea behind these?
Well, the great thing is they're based on solid science, and they empower you to listen to your own body. You don't need to count calories, you don't need extreme diets, you don't even need a CGM to get started. They're about making informed, simple choices that have a surprisingly big impact.
Okay, hack number 1 sounds almost too simple. Eat your food in the right order. How can something so basic make such a difference to glucose levels?
It's incredibly effective because of basic digestion. Think of your stomach like a sink and your small intestine like the pipe underneath.
Okay.
If starches and sugars go in first, whoosh, they flow straight into the intestine, causing a rapid glucose spike.
Right.
But if you eat fiber first, then protein and fat, and then the starches and sugars last.
The fiber acts like a dam.
Exactly. It slows everything down, slows gastric emptying, prevents that flood of glucose, reduces the spike significantly.
A dam. I like that analogy. Has this actually been proven scientifically?
Absolutely. There was a really striking study back in 2016. 2 groups of type 2 diabetics ate the exact same food for 8 weeks.
Okay.
The group who ate their food in the right order, fiber first, etc., saw a significant drop in their HbA1c levels. Basically, they were reversing their diabetes.
Just by changing the order.
Just by changing the order.
Yeah.
The control group, eating the same food but in no particular sequence, saw no improvement at all.
That's pretty incredible. Can you give us a real-world example, someone who actually did this?
Sure. Think about Bernadette. Loved her tuna sandwich, right? But it always left her sleepy and craving chocolate mid-afternoon.
The classic crash.
Totally.
Yeah.
So following this hack, she deconstructed her sandwich, ate the salad and pickle first, then the tuna, then finally the toasted bread.
Oh.
Within 3 days, her afternoon sleepiness vanished. No more chocolate cravings. She felt energized, free, just because her glucose levels weren't spiking and crashing anymore.
Wow, so practical tip for listeners. At a restaurant, maybe order a salad or some veggies with olive oil and vinegar. Eat that before the main course arrives.
Exactly. Or do like Gustavo, a salesman in Mexico, mentioned in the book. He eats a big plate of grilled broccoli at home before going out to dinner, just to prep his system. He lost 88 pounds doing things like this.
88 pounds. That's amazing.
It is. And that leads perfectly into hack number 2. Add a green starter to every meal.
Okay, so similar idea, but specifically greens.
Right. Green veggies are packed with fiber, which, as we said, doesn't break down into glucose itself, but it really slows down gastric emptying, reinforces that dam effect.
Makes sense. Why are greens so effective? And do you have another story, maybe?
It's just that powerful fiber creating a kind of viscous gel in your stomach, slowing down absorption of everything that follows. Think about Jas, a teacher. She struggled with intense sugar cravings, weight gain, acne, irregular periods.
A lot going on there.
Yeah. She remembered her mom always started dinner with a big salad, so she started doing that consciously: big salad before lunch, big salad before dinner.
And what happened?
Within 10 days, her sugar cravings were gone, completely. She lost 20 pounds, her acne cleared up, her period normalized. It's a perfect example of how a flatter glucose curve stabilizes hunger, mood, everything.
That's fantastic. So, practically speaking, how much veg, and do you need to wait between the starter and the main?
Any amount is better than nothing, definitely, but a good target is roughly the same quantity of veggies as the starches you plan to eat afterwards.
Okay.
And no need to wait. You can eat them right before, in sequence. Easy ideas: spinach with olive oil, vinegar, maybe some feta, nuts, jarred hearts of palm are great, roasted cauliflower. Keep it simple.
Okay, this next hack, number 3, really challenges what we've all been told for decades. Stop counting calories. Focus on molecules. Why is this such a game changer? Calories have always been the focus.
It's a huge shift, I know, but the science backs it up. The type of molecule you eat matters more than the raw calorie count.
How so?
There was a study with obese teenagers. They replaced the fructose in their diet with glucose. keeping the total calories exactly the same.
All right.
Their health markers, blood pressure, triglycerides, actually improved significantly. Same calories, different molecules, better health.
So it's not just about eating less, it's about the kind of calories.
Precisely. In another study, University of Michigan 2017, overweight people focused on flattening their glucose curves. They actually ate more calories than the control group who were just counting calories.
More calories and lost more weight.
Significantly more. They lost 17 pounds on average versus just 4 pounds for the calorie counters.
Why?
Because reducing insulin is key for weight loss. You flatten your glucose curve, you flatten your insulin curve. That allows your body to burn fat.
This sounds exactly like Marie's story you mentioned earlier.
It is. Marie, 28, reactive hypoglycemia, shaky, spacey, hungry all the time after eating, plus a long list of other issues.
Right.
She walked 10,000 steps, strictly limited calories to 2,000 a day, healthy, low-fat, veggie stuff, felt terrible.
So what changed?
She started focusing on flattening her glucose curves, eating carbs last, adding salads, more protein, fat, fiber, stopped obsessing over calories.
And the result?
Her hyperglycemia reversed, her other symptoms dramatically improved, and get this, she now eats more than 2,000 calories and feels amazing.
Wow. So the food industry focusing on calories is almost like a distraction.
You could certainly see it that way. It diverts attention from things like high fructose content, which, as we know, disproportionately turns into fat.
Let's talk breakfast. Hack number 4, go savory for breakfast. This is going to be a tough one for many people, myself included. Why is breakfast so critical for the whole day's glucose levels?
It really sets the stage. Typical Western breakfast, cereal, toast, juice, pastries, they're loaded with starch and sugar.
Yeah.
This causes a massive glucose spike first thing in the morning, and that initial spike can actually deregulate your glucose control for the entire rest of the day.
The whole day.
The whole day, leading to more cravings later, more hunger, that lagging energy by mid-morning or afternoon.
But we're always told sweet breakfasts give us energy. That's not true.
It's a common misconception. It might give you a quick dopamine hit, a pleasure feeling, but that glucose energy gets stored away super fast as glycogen or fat.
Okay.
So there's actually less energy circulating and available for your immediate needs. Ironically, more carbs for breakfast can mean less usable energy.
Okay, give us an example, someone like Olivia. How did changing breakfast help her?
Right, Olivia. 18, vegetarian, constant cravings, acne, anxiety, fatigue, typical high-sugar breakfast routine.
Okay.
She switched to savory options, things like eggs with avocado. The difference. Stable energy all day. Her cravings vanished, her skin cleared up, anxiety lessened. Huge change.
So for listeners ready to try this, what are some practical savory options? Especially if you're rushed in the morning.
Good question. No cook. Maybe a whole wheat bagel, thin with cream cheese, lettuce, turkey slices, or even a can of tuna with some pecans.
Okay.
Quick cook. Hard-boiled eggs with hot sauce and avocado. Scrambled eggs maybe with some goat cheese.
Huh?
Leftovers from dinner.
Leftovers for breakfast. Why not? What if someone really can't give up sweet breakfast?
Okay, if it's a must, try eating it after something savory first.
The order hack again.
Exactly. Pancakes after eggs and sausage, for example. For smoothies, build them strategically. Protein powder first, then healthy fats like flaxseed oil or avocado, nuts, seeds, then spinach, and finally, berries for sweetness.
And coffee. Fruit.
Full-fat milk or cream in coffee is better than sugar. For fruit, stick to berries, citrus, tart apples. Avoid the super sugary tropical fruits like mango or pineapple, especially on their own.
Got it. Okay, hack number 5 cuts through a lot of marketing noise. All sugars are the same. Break down the molecular truth here. What about honey? Agave, brown sugar, natural sugars.
Right. On a molecular level, your body really doesn't see much difference. Table sugar, honey, agave, maple syrup, brown sugar, they're all just combinations of glucose and fructose molecules.
So natural is just marketing.
Pretty much. All sugar comes from a plant originally, so it's all natural in that sense. But your body processes the glucose and fructose molecules the same way, whether they came from a sugar beet or a date.
Speaking of dates,
Ah.
dried fruit, often seen as healthy, problematic.
Can be, yes, if you're aiming for flat curves. Dried fruit dates, dried mango, raisins, they're super concentrated sugar bombs. The water's gone, so you eat way more sugar, way faster than you would with fresh fruit. Leads to huge spikes.
Amanda's story really highlights this, doesn't it?
It really does. Amanda, late 20s, Total health nut, right? Shocked by a gestational diabetes diagnosis during pregnancy.
Because she thought she was eating healthy.
Exactly. Including lots of dried fruit for snacks and cravings. She learned the hard way that the dried fruit was actually a big part of the problem.
What did she do?
Quit the dried fruit, switched to a savory breakfast, managed her gestational diabetes without medication. Healthy baby. It was a huge realization for her.
Okay, what about agave? It's often pushed as having a lower glycemic index. Misleading.
Very misleading. Yes, lower glycemic index, but that's because it's much higher in fructose than table sugar. And remember, fructose is arguably worse, harder on the liver, goes straight to fat storage.
Yeah, honey.
Honey has tiny amounts of antioxidants, sure, but not enough to outweigh the massive glucose and fructose hit. Don't fool yourself.
So what are the best sweeteners then, if you need one?
The ones that don't spike glucose or insulin are things like allulose, monk fruit, pure stevia extract, and erythritol. Be cautious with some artificial sweeteners, though. Some can still raise insulin or glucose.
Good to know. Okay, hack number 6 might really surprise people.
Yeah.
Pick dessert over a sweet snack. Why on earth is eating sugar after a meal better? Seems backward.
It does seem backward, but it's all about context and timing. Eating something sweet after a full meal, especially a meal with fiber, protein, and fat, results in a much smaller glucose spike.
Why?
Because the other food in your stomach slows down gastric emptying. The sugar gets absorbed much more slowly. Compare that to eating sugar on an empty stomach straight spike.
Plus, skipping snacks helps.
Yes. Foregoing snacks keeps your system out of that post-prandial state, the after-eating state, for longer. This gives your body more time for important cleanup and repair processes at the cellular level.
So if a craving hits between meals, wait.
Exactly. Save that cookie or piece of chocolate for right after your next proper meal. Gadir's story illustrates this well. Mother of 3, PCOS, insulin resistance, miscarriages, stopped menstruating.
Wow.
She implemented these hacks, including having sweets only as dessert, never as snacks. Huge improvements in her symptoms, cycles normalized, better overall well-being.
That's powerful. Okay, hack 7 taps into ancient wisdom. Reach for vinegar before you eat. What's the science here?
Vinegar, specifically the acetic acid in it, is fascinating. Used for centuries, right? Now we know why. Just 1 tablespoon diluted in water before a carb-heavy meal can cut the glucose spike by 8 to 30%.
8 to 30%? That's significant.
It is. And it seems to help with weight loss, too. One study showed people drinking vinegar lost twice as much weight as a control group eating the same calories. It also seems to help reduce visceral fat, waist tip measurements, triglycerides, and maybe even PCOS symptoms based on a small study.
It's amazing how traditional practices often hold scientific truth. Monaz from Tehran, her family drank ACV for generations.
Right. They knew intuitively it was good. Now science explains why.
Any caveats?
Yeah, important ones. Use a straw to protect your teeth from the acid. And remember, vinegar helps curb the spike. It doesn't eliminate it. It's not a free pass to eat tons of sugar.
Good point. Does the type matter? ACV.
Any vinegar works because it's the acetic acid. Apple cider vinegar is popular, maybe tastes better to some.
Okay, hack number 8, super accessible. Move after eating. How does a little walk make such a difference?
It's all about your muscles. Even just 10 to 20 minutes of moderate activity, a brisk walk is perfect after eating, can dramatically flatten that glucose curve.
How?
When your muscles contract, they need energy. What's their favorite energy? Glucose. So they suck up the glucose from your bloodstream to fuel the movement.
Ah, so it diverts the glucose before it causes a big spike or gets stored as fat.
Precisely. It prevents that flood. Think of the Indian custom, 100 steps after a meal. They were onto something.
Do you have an example for this one?
Sure, Jose. Started walking for 20 minutes after his usual rice-heavy lunch.
Yeah.
He quickly noticed no more afternoon sleepiness, no more cravings for sweets later. He just felt good, energized for the rest of the workday.
It doesn't have to be a walk, right?
No. Get creative. Do squats during TV ads, wall sits while brushing your teeth, tricep dips off the couch. At the office, take the stairs. Do calf raises in a meeting, desk push-ups. Just get those muscles working.
Great ideas. Okay, last hack, number 9. Put clothes on your carbs. Explain this one. What are naked carbs?
Naked carbs are just carbs eaten alone. Think a plain piece of bread, a bowl of pasta with just tomato sauce, a handful of crackers, no significant fiber, protein, or fat alongside them.
And that's bad because...
Leads to the sharpest glucose spikes. And it messes with your hunger hormones like ghrelin. Makes you hungry again really fast, maybe even hangry.
Okay, so the solution is...
Put clothes on them. Combine carbs with fat, protein, or fiber. These additions slow down the glucose absorption, flatten the curve.
Now, I thought adding fat to carbs actually increased insulin spikes. I've heard that.
That is a very common misconception, yeah. Popularized by some older diet ideas, but recent science actually shows the opposite. Adding fat does not increase the insulin spike from carbs. If anything, it can decrease it by slowing down that glucose release.
That's a big myth busted. And this sounds like it could help with mood swings too, not just hunger.
Definitely. Look at Lucy, 24-year-old athlete, heptathlete with type 1 diabetes. She had wild glucose swings, terrible hanger, made her temper really volatile.
Tough for relationships, I bet.
For sure. She was shocked to learn even people without diabetes get spikes. So she started applying the close on carbs hack, like eating an egg before having a chocolate bar.
Yeah.
Her glucose levels steadied out hugely, her anger lessened, her relationships improved. Big impact.
So give us some practical clothing ideas for carbs.
Okay. Add nuts to cookies or fruit. Have Greek yogurt with that brownie. Lox or cream cheese on your bagel. Toss fresh herbs, nuts, or cheese into rice or pasta.
Simple additions.
Yeah, and remember, things like lentils or beans are naturally clothed. They've starch, but also fiber and protein, better than plain rice. Whole grains are slightly better than refined, but they still need clothes too.
What about fats? Good versus bad?
Right. Focus on good fats, saturated from animal sources. Butter, coconut oil are fine in moderation. Monounsaturated fats like avocado, olives, nuts are great. Try to limit the processed polyunsaturated and trans fats, seed oils, fried foods. Moderation is key, always.
This is all fantastic information.
Yeah.
But applying it when you're shopping, food labels can be so confusing. How do we become a spike scanning machine in the grocery store?
You totally can. First rule, ignore the big calories number plastered on the front.
Ignore calories.
For this purpose, yes. Remember, molecules matter more. Instead, flip it over, look at the nutrition facts. Find total carbohydrate and dietary fiber.
Okay, carbs and fiber, what then?
For dry foods especially, look for a ratio. Aim for at least 1 gram of dietary fiber for every 5 grams of total carbohydrates.
1 gram fiber for every 5 grams carbs.
Yeah. So if something has 25 g carbs per serving, you want to see at least 5 g of fiber. That ratio suggests a flat-out glucose curve. It's a quick check.
That's a great practical tip. Any other shopping advice?
Stick to the outer aisles as much as possible. That's where the whole, minimally processed foods usually are: fruits, veggies, dairy, meat, fish. Center aisles are often processed food territory, and maybe the most important tip: never shop hungry.
Definitely good advice. We have covered so much today. It's really clear that understanding and managing glucose isn't about restriction or deprivation, is it?
Not at all. It's about making informed choices, simple tweaks that empower you to feel drastically better. More energy, fewer cravings, better mood.
From eating food in the right order, adding those green starters, choosing savory breakfasts, moving after meals, putting clothes on carbs. These are real tools, practical tools to flatten those curves.
And remember what we said earlier, those symptoms. The brain fog, the cravings, the acne, fatigue, hormonal issues. They're messages from your body. And the amazing thing is, we now know they're largely reversible.
It's also fascinating how individual it can be, right? While the hacks work generally, specific food responses can vary.
Absolutely. It's an ongoing journey of discovery, really. Personalized nutrition is the future, learning to listen to your own body's signals.
So, a final thought for everyone listening. If you suspect you might be in that 88% with dysregulated glucose, what single hack will you try first? What's the first step you'll take to start listening to your body and taking back control?